Hello, my name is Melissa, and today I'm going to be talking about sexual minorities and mental health. As of a survey completed in 2017, 4.5% of the entire population identifies as lesbian, gay, or bisexual. That alone equates to nearly 15 million people. Keeping in mind that this was 6 years ago and also isn't accounting for transgender and other members of the LGBTQ community, it is safe to assume that this number is even higher. In 2019, researchers conducted a study of 2,993 sexual minorities between the ages of 18 and 65. It was found that 17% of participants had experienced some form of discrimination in the past year. 13% reported general discrimination, 12% reported victimization, and 7% reported healthcare discrimination. In a survey completed, 6 in 10 sexual minorities experienced verbal homophobic abuse, and 2 in 10 experienced physical homophobic abuse. With those numbers, it is no surprise that over 39% of sexual minorities have reported mental health illnesses in the past year, or that sexual minorities are 3 times more likely to experience depression than heterosexuals. Due to their sexual and/or gender identity, sexual minority youth experience more reluctance in the acceptance from family members than that of heterosexual youth because of their sexual identity. Sexual minorities that have a strong and accepting family support system are at a lower risk for experiencing depression as well as suicidality and substance abuse. While on the opposite side, sexual minority youth whose family is not supportive of their sexual identity are at a higher risk of experiencing depression, partaking in substance use or abuse, as well as suicide attempts. It is important to keep in mind that just because family is accepting of one's sexual identity does not negate any negative undertones or microaggressions that a family member might give off. The mental health of sexual minority youth is so important, and so it is crucial to portray explicit acceptance as is the most beneficial for their mental health. In a survey done in 2019, it was found that 51.1% of sexual minorities would rather conceal their sexual orientation in social settings. Sexual orientation concealment may be due to any number of things, including the possibility of rejection or discrimination based on one's sexual identity. While concealment of one's sexual orientation may prevent them from discrimination, this concealment does take a toll on one's mental health. The concealment of sexual identity has been linked to higher rates of depression, as well as higher rates of non-suicidal self-injury. Non-suicidal self-injury, or NSSI, is defined as behaviors that intentionally and directly damage one's own body without suicidal intent. In a survey completed, 24.4% of heterosexual participants reported some form of NSSI, compared to 40.5% of sexual minorities who had. That is 16.10% more sexual minorities than heterosexuals. Why do they believe this is? Partially due to the sexual orientation concealment of sexual minorities, as well as the discrimination and victimization that they experience. The percentage of attempted suicide rates among sexual minorities is also significantly higher than that of heterosexuals. So far, we have established that sexual minorities are at an increased risk of depression and mental health issues. Now, we will move into the discussion of the link between mental health issues and substance use or abuse. Sexual minorities are already at a higher risk of substance use because of the hostile and stressful environments that they are experiencing on a regular basis due to the stigma and discrimination that they encounter. The rates in which sexual minorities are using or abusing substances is significantly higher than that of heterosexuals or cisgender individuals. Sexual minority youth are 3 times more likely to report substance use, such as alcohol, marijuana, and tobacco, compared to heterosexual youth. In adults, sexual minorities also report higher levels of substance use in the past year, as well as abusing prescription drugs and participating in chemsex drug use. Sexual minorities report more psychological distress than their heterosexual counterparts. 1/3 of the LGBT community experience a mental illness and are more than 2 to 3 times more likely to have a long-term emotional problem. Some of the reasons these numbers are so much higher than that in heterosexuals is because, as we have seen in some of the previous statistics, many sexual minorities regularly face prejudice, harassment, and discrimination. Many struggle with the concealment of their sexual identity, and also many experience barriers to mental health care needs. With the increased risk of mental health issues, as well as the increased substance use experienced by sexual minorities, you would think that mental health services would be readily available. Unfortunately, sexual minorities have reported more unmet mental health care needs and barriers than heterosexuals, while at the same time requiring a higher perceived need for mental health care services. In a survey, 39.8% of sexual minorities reported an unmet mental health care need sometime in the past year. That same survey concluded that 3 of the 4 most commonly listed reasons for participants' unmet mental health care needs were some form of a structural barrier. The first was that the individual could not afford the cost. The second most listed item was that the health insurance did not cover the mental health services needed. And the third was that their insurance did not cover enough of the mental health care services. The next most common barrier experienced by sexual minorities found was the help-seeking stigma. It was determined that sexual minorities tend to be reactive in their mental health care needs as opposed to being proactive, essentially meaning that they will wait until their mental health care needs have become severe before seeking out help. The reasons for this tend to be due to the stigma surrounding the mental health professionals. Sexual minorities believe that psychologists and other mental health professionals lack an understanding and are unapproachable. To be honest, these statistics are absolutely appalling. Steps need to be taken to ensure that sexual minorities can receive mental health care services at affordable rates. In addition, it is so important that we are able to promote cultural affirmative psychologists to ensure that mental health providers are approachable and non-discriminatory towards sexual minority community in order to increase help-seeking behaviors. If you or someone you know are struggling with mental health issues, please don't hesitate to reach out. While there is still a long way to go, steps are being taken to give sexual minorities the mental health care they need.